Hey guys, welcome back. Let's go take a look at the next thing, which happens to be Web VPN. What is this? In this type of VPN, now we're transitioning into remote access VPNs. In this, your PC, your client, will establish a VPN to the ASA firewall, either using the Web VPN technology or any connect. Those are the next two labs that we'll be taking a look at over here. All right. So what is Web VPN? This is the initial SSL type of VPN that we had. In this type of VPN, the client over here uses the browser as a client, logs in using the web server onto the ASA. As soon as he logs in, he gets a page for logging in. He types in a username password, which you have defined on your ASA firewall, matches it. As soon as he logs in, he gets access to a web page. In this web page, by default, it will have access to the ability to have connectivity to three types of servers on the inside. Web servers, FTP servers, and CIFS, which are your Windows shared folders, like file servers using Windows, the NetBIOS naming server. He will have a small little, the user will have a small little bar where he can type in the address. What happens in this type of setup, because this is all done based on HTTP, the browser will send the packet sourced from the PC's public address, 100, let's say 99, destined to the ASA. Inside the packet over here will be the request saying, I want to access, let's say, the web server located at, let's say, 10.1.1.1, which is maybe a web server down here. This packet will be encrypted using the SSL protocol. The request will be received by the ASA. He will decrypt the request, and he will forward the request as a proxy to the web server. The packet that goes from the ASA to the internal web server is sent with a source address of 10.11.11.10, which is the IP address of the inside interface, destination to 10.1.1.1. So this guy has no idea that the actual request is coming in from somebody outside. He sees the request coming in from the ASA itself. This type of VPN is also referred to as a proxy-based VPN. In this type of VPN, the remote device has very little access or presence on the inside network. So all the requests are coming into the ASA. ASA is proxying it into the internal device. The drawback of this, by default, in the native form, it only has access to what? These three protocols. The advantage is very simple to set up. This basically allows your end users to access resources on the inside. Good? Everybody okay with that? That is what a Web VPN is. Let's see. I have all right, over here, the Web VPN capabilities allows you the ability to connect using a browser as a client. This is also called a clientless VPN. Why? You don't actually install any client on the client device. It uses SSL as the encryption protocol. Only allowed protocols by default are web, which is HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and CIFS. What I'll do is I'll put this over here. As the explanation for Web VPN, and then the lab. Good so far? You guys understand where it's used. Not a very common implementation. Why? Because of the limitations. It does allow you the ability to do other services, but it requires the old version of Java to run. I'll show you how to do it over here, but it's not gonna, I won't be able to test it for you. The reason is I don't have the old version of Java. Okay, so how do I enable the service? Because this VPN, again, the traffic will come in from the client destined to the ASA firewall, the outside interface. I need to enable the service on the outside interface. So you start by enabling the service. How do I enable the service? Let's take a look. Web VPN, enable outside. Just like we have to do for Crypto IP2, Telnet, SSH, all of those services. So first you enable it. Then, very simple, create a group where you specify the protocol that you want to allow these clients to come in. I'm using SSL clientless, which is Web VPN. You can put a banner over there. You can put DNS server, small little things, small little configurations over there. Okay? Once that's done, the last step over here is create a user and link it to the group. So I create a user called QR with the password of Cisco123 and tell it that he's a member of the sales group, this guy over here. And that's it. That's all you got to do to set this VPN up. This will allow the remote client access to the internal resources behind the ASA firewall. So if you take a look at this over here, our diagram, this client, this test PC, somewhere on the internet, remember this is simulating the internet over here. This PC via the internet connects up to the ASA firewall. It has an internal network. ASA is fronting it. So the PC will be able to access the resources over here. By default, what resources are available to you? Any web server, HTTP, HTTPS server, any FTP server for file sharing, or for file sharing, you can also use the Windows file sharing, which is CIFS. Good so far? How do I set it up? This way. Let me do this first, get this up and running, then I'll talk about the port forwarding as well. So I'll go to the ASA, enable the service on the outside interface, created the group. The group has this banner called authorized users only. Okay, the protocol the group sales is using is SSL clientless, which is Web VPN. Created a user called QR with the password of Cisco123. For QR, the attributes are he's a member of this group called sales, which is this guy. So he gets access to SSL clientless. Very simple setup. At this point, I should be able to access this device from the remote side. So let me check the PC's port number. It is 773. So I'll open up VNC again, 773. Done that in the past. I think this is the one. Let me just check, verify that. Yeah, it's up. So if it's up, that's the PC. Same password, test P capital 123. It'll log in. I might need to set the IP address over here as well. And the IP address is based on the diagram is 192.1.100.99, I'll say. Default gateway should be 100.3. So let's go ahead and do that over here on VNC. And on this one, I also need to enable the, I'll do that later on. I need to enable the client-led service, which I don't have, I don't think it's on. So let's check the IP address as well. Yep, need to set the IP. So I'll go over here, change the adapter settings, properties, IPv4, 192.100.99, 192.100.3 as the default gateway. Let's make sure I can ping. Okay, 192.100.3. That is pingable. So if that's the case, I should also be able to go to 20.10, which is the ASA firewall. Now that I'm there, I should now be able to open my browser up. Do HTTPS to 192.20.10. Advanced, proceed, QR, Cisco 123, authorized users only, connected, and there you go. That's the bar that I was talking about, the protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, CIFS, and FTP. So your web applications and the ability to browse networks browse is basically CIFS and FTP. Let's do a web connection to one of the devices, let's say R1. R1, what I've done, if I show you R1 real quick, I have an enable password of Cisco. On R1, I've enabled R1 with the HTTP service. So I should be able to log in into R1. So 10.11.11.10 is the IP, 10.11.11.1 is the IP. I should be able to log in. The other thing I want you guys to take a look at over here, if I do show IP HTTP server history, shows me the incoming requests. None of the requests are coming in right now, okay? So let's open up a request over here. So I'll go to my VNC, my client, and over here, within, not over here, this is the overall bar. I'm inside the, I want to go to the VPN. I need to put the address over here. 10.11.11.1, which is the IP address of R1. I'll try to browse to it. It'll ask me for a password. That's the enable password. It's Cisco. And I'm connected to router 1 using the IP address of 10.11.11.1. Now, when you go to the router itself, and I check the show IP HTTP server history, you will notice that the request is not really coming in from the PC. It's coming in. The remote address is the inside interface of the ASA firewall. That's the remote access, the proxy-based VPN that I was talking about. Everybody understand that? The problem with this, again, the shortcoming with this is that it is only limited to what? Web, FTP, and CIFS by default. Okay? What if you have one other protocols? I want this guy on the outside, he should be able to telnet, and he should be able to, let's say, go into a database that's located somewhere over here. Again, for RDP, you would, again, still need to do what? You need to enable that port number over here. So for the database, let's say it's 1521 that I'm using. So I can make a connection to the inside server. Let's say there's a database server down here, which is 10.11.11.5 and port number 1521. And I want to be able to telnet into R1. Okay, I want to set that up. The way I do that is I do it by using what is known as port forwarding. In that, I will set up a custom port on the ASA firewall saying, hey, listen, when the clients connect in, if they come in with a custom port of, let's say, 30,001, forward that request to 10.11.11.5 for port 1521. That information needs to be told to the SPC as well. So on the PC, the database client, he makes a connection into 127.0.0.1. You will install a Java redirector, which will take the request that is meant for 127.0.0.1 for port number. You need to tell him, hey, listen, don't use the default port 1521. Instead, use port number 30,001. Because the Java redirector is installed at layer 7, although it's meant for 127.0.0.1, the Java redirector, anything that's destined to 127.0.0.1 or a port number 30,001, what it does with it, it will encapsulate the packet and send it via the SSL packet to the VPN connection. So this is where the 127.0.0.1 port number 30,001 will be sent to the ASA firewall. ASA firewall receives it on 30,001. He will forward it to this guy. You get my point? But I need to do the port forwarding. The problem with this is you need to have the older version of Java. It gives a big headache if you don't have the proper version of Java. It doesn't run. So how do I set that up? I have an example for you created. You go under the Web VPN, global Web VPN, where you enable the protocol. You configure a port forward. You specify sales apps, the name of the port forward, and you specify 30,001 as that custom port, which will be shown to the end user when he launches the applications. That is going to 10.11.11.1 for telnet, so that's for R1, and 30,002 would be your web application, which is this guy. Once I create those port forward called sales app inside Web VPN globally, I need to attach that to the sales group saying Web VPN, I want whoever's a member of sales to have access to sales app. The sales apps will give them access to these two port numbers. Now for this to work, you need to have the proper Java version. I don't have that, but at least I can show you the subtle change that happens in your interface. So if I go back down to your client, and I'll go back to home, what are the buttons that you have on the left-hand side? You have the web application and the browse networks. Web applications, HTTP and HTTPS. And the browse networks is what? CIFS and FTP, right? You will also, you don't have that right now. You'll get an application window when you log in with a port forward setup for this group. The application window will give you the ability to start your applications. When you start your applications is when the Java redirector kicks in. That sits at the application layer, so any request coming in, and it'll tell you the IP address and the port number and what it's actually translating to. So the end user will see that redirection. But in my case, I don't have the old version of Java installed, so it's not going to work, but at least you will see that it does have that start application. I'll log out over here. I'll set up my port forward again, Web VPN, the custom port, and the actual redirection. So 30,001 will go to 10.11.11.1 for port 23. 30,002 will go to 10.11.11.5, 1521. Same application called sales apps, and I've applied sales apps as a port forward group for the sales group policy. So I copy it, go to the ASA firewall, and implement this. Sales, what did I call it? That is French. Let me do it again. There you go. It took it now. Copy it again. Show run Web VPN. That's good. Show run group policy. Sales. It took it now. So once it takes that sales port forward for sales apps, now if I go browse again, log on, I logged in, got the window, and you'll notice that I have a new button over here for application access. Okay, so if I launch it over here, it normally gives you the ability to, well, it gives you the ability to do start application. Normally when you do start application, it's looking for Java 1.4 plus. That's the issue. Now, if I had Java 1.4 S over here in this, it'll create a table over here. It will tell you that if you want to get to 127, it picks that as a local loopback. But more importantly, 30,001, it will be forwarded towards based on what I configured on the other side. I'll show you that. So the end user is aware that if he wants to go to a particular IP for a particular port number, what is that he needs to do. So once as a user I see that, now I know, let's say I want to telnet into 10.1.1.3. When I open up my PuTTY, keeping this window open, you need to have this redirection open. I'll open PuTTY up. I will not telnet into 10.1.1.23. I'll telnet into 127.0.0.1. And in the port number, I'm not going to use the default port. I'm going to use port number 30,001. When I send that request, because the Java redirector window is open, it will take the request and forward it in through the Web VPN using this port number. The ASA knows what to do with port number 30,001. Understood, guys? Again, very old way of doing it, but that's the way it's done, and the limitation you guys can see. For every application that's not listed, you would need to do that. And that is Web VPN for you guys.